My neighbor's desperate warning shattered my world. Run while you can. Your son and his wife are monsters. I asked him what did they do. He revealed the terrible truth which made my legs buckle, and I almost fainted from shock. This truth changed everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The Henderson contract lay scattered across my mahogany desk like fallen leaves. 23 years of building Ramos Logistics, and now they were pulling out. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, the cream forming an ugly film on top. I pushed my reading glasses up my nose and stared at the cancellation notice again, hoping the numbers would somehow change. Effective immediately, the letter read, $2 million in annual revenue, gone. I leaned back in my leather chair, feeling every one of my 67 years in my shoulders. The desert sun blazed through my office blinds, casting harsh lines across the financial reports. My jaw clenched as I calculated the damage. 3 employees would have to go, maybe 4. The phone's shrill ring cut through the afternoon silence like a knife. I almost let it go to voicemail. The last thing I needed was another client calling with bad news. But the caller ID made me freeze. Milton, my son. 3 years since our last conversation. 3 years since he stormed out of this very office, shouting about my lack of faith in his dreams. I stared at the phone, my finger hovering over the answer button. Hello, Dad. His voice was softer than I remembered, uncertain. I know we haven't talked in forever, and I know that's mostly my fault, but I waited. The Henderson contract suddenly seemed less important. Flossie and I, we want to invite you over. We've missed you. Martha's photo smiled at me from the corner of my desk. She always said I was too stubborn, too hard on the boy. When were you thinking? Maybe this Friday. We'll make a great dinner. I've been wanting to show you the house, and Flossie's become quite the cook. He paused. I owe you an apology, Dad, for how things ended between us. The fight came rushing back. Milton at 35 asking for $50,000 to invest in some app that would revolutionize transportation. His face when I'd said no when I'd told him to get a real job instead of chasing fantasies. You never believed in me, he'd shouted. I believe in hard work, not get-rich schemes. The door had slammed so hard it rattled the windows. Martha's last photo had fallen off the wall that day. I've missed you too, son. The words came out rougher than I intended. I'll drive up Friday morning. Really? That's wonderful. We live in Beverly Hills now. I'll text you the address. Beverly Hills. The boy had done well for himself, apparently. Maybe I'd been wrong about him after all. Maybe Martha's gentle voice had been right as usual. After hanging up, I sat in the silence for a long moment. The Henderson contract still lay before me, but it felt smaller somehow, less devastating. Family trumped business every time. I walked to my bedroom and pulled out my good luggage, the set Martha and I used for our anniversary trips. From my jewelry box, I selected the Rolex I'd been saving for a special occasion. Milton had always admired it. For Flossie, I chose the diamond earrings Martha wore to our wedding. She'd want them to stay in the family. The drive would take about 6 hours if I left early. I folded clothes carefully into the overnight bag, hands steadier than they'd been all week. Business problems could wait. My son was reaching out, and this time I wouldn't let pride get in the way. I carried my bags to the Cadillac, the 1995 DeVille, that had served me faithfully for decades. The leather seats were worn but comfortable, like an old friend. As I loaded the trunk, the Arizona sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. Tomorrow, I'd see Milton again. Tomorrow, we'd start rebuilding what we'd lost. I placed the last bag in the trunk and looked toward the horizon, where California waited beyond the desert. Friday morning arrived with desert clarity. I backed the Cadillac out of my driveway at 9 sharp, the engine purring with satisfaction. Phoenix spread behind me in the rearview mirror, a sprawling testament to dreams built in harsh places. The interstate stretched ahead like a promise. Route 10. West had been my companion on dozens of business trips over the years, but today felt different. Today it carried hope instead of obligation. I adjusted the rearview mirror and caught sight of my own eyes, bright with anticipation I hadn't felt in months. The radio crackled to life as I merged into traffic. Eagles filled the cabin with Hotel California, and I found myself humming along despite the irony. The air conditioning battled the climbing heat as Phoenix gave way to open desert. By 11, I was deep in Arizona's heart, where civilization thinned to gas stations and truck stops. The landscape stretched endlessly in shades of beige and brown, punctuated by the occasional Joshua tree reaching toward an impossibly blue sky. This stretch always made me think of Martha. She'd love these drives. Claimed the emptiness helped her think clearly. "All that space gives your soul room to breathe," she'd say, her hand resting on mine over the gear shift. A memory surfaced unbidden. Milton at 12, bouncing in the back seat of this same Cadillac as we drove to Roosevelt Lake for a camping weekend. Martha had packed enough food for an army, convinced we'd starve in the wilderness 30 minutes from town. "Dad, when can I drive?" Milton had asked, leaning forward between our seats. "When you're tall enough to reach the pedals without sitting on a phone book," I'd laughed. "That's not fair. Tommy's dad lets him steer on their ranch. Tommy's dad has more land and fewer traffic laws to worry about." At the lake, I'd taught him to cast a line, his small hands gripping the rod with fierce determination. Martha had taken pictures of us holding up a base that was honestly too small to keep, but we'd posed like we'd landed Moby Dick. Later, she'd laughed until she cried, watching us try to cook dinner over our pitiful campfire. "You two couldn't start a fire if your lives depended on it," she'd gasp between giggles. "We're learning important survival skills," I'd protested, but I was laughing too. Those were golden days. Before teenage rebellion, before college arguments, before the business fights that drove us apart. When had it all gotten so complicated? The gas gauge dropped steadily, and I pulled into a station in Quartzsite. The elderly cashier looked up from his newspaper as I entered, sweat beading on my forehead despite the air conditioning. "Visiting family in California?" he asked, ringing up my fuel purchase. "My son. Haven't seen him in years." His weathered face creased into a smile. "Family's everything. You're doing the right thing." The validation felt like cool water on sunburned skin. I walked back to the Cadillac with lighter steps. The California border appeared around 2 o'clock, marked by agricultural inspection stations in the first palm trees. The landscape began its subtle transformation from desert brown to coastal green. Traffic thickened as I approached the Los Angeles sprawl, luxury cars appearing with increasing frequency among the travel-worn sedans and trucks. My old Cadillac suddenly felt shabby among the gleaming BMWs and Mercedes that populated the lanes around me. Beverly Hills money moved differently than Phoenix money. Apparently, the GPS on my phone guided me through increasingly affluent neighborhoods. Manicured lawns replaced desert landscaping. Swimming pools sparkled behind high walls. This was Milton's world now, far removed from the middle-class Phoenix neighborhood where he'd learned to ride a bike. Had I held him back somehow? Had my emphasis on practical work over big dreams limited his possibilities? Maybe this success proved I'd been wrong. Maybe the boy I'd raised had simply needed room to grow beyond what I could provide. Traffic crawled through Beverly Hills proper. Rodeo Drive appeared and disappeared in my peripheral vision, a street I'd only seen in movies. My palms grew damp on the steering wheel despite the air conditioning. The GPS announced distances in hundreds of feet now instead of miles. In 1 mile, turn right on Palm Drive. My heart rate picked up. 3 years of silence were about to end. I checked my appearance in the rearview mirror, smoothing my gray hair and adjusting my collar. The gifts sat securely in the passenger seat, wrapped in the good paper Martha always insisted on saving for special occasions. In 500 fruit, turn right on Palm Drive. The white modernist villa rose before me like something from an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the afternoon sun, creating a mirror maze of light and shadow. A circular driveway curved around a central fountain, its water catching rainbows in the spray. Palm trees stood sentinel along the perfectly manicured lawn. I parked the Cadillac and sat for a moment, taking it in. Milton had done more than well for himself. This was wealth on a scale I'd never imagined, certainly nothing my logistics company could have provided. Pride and intimidation whirred in my chest as I gathered the gift bags from the passenger seat. The front door was solid oak with brass fixtures that gleamed like jewelry. I rang the doorbell and heard chimes echo inside, a melody that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Through the frosted glass, I could make out movement shadows, furniture shapes, the suggestion of opulence, but no footsteps. I waited, adjusting my tie and smoothing my shirt. The desert heat seemed different here, humid with sprinkler mist and swimming pool evaporation. After a full minute, I knocked firmly on the door. "Milton, Flossie," my voice carried across the quiet street. "It's Dad." Silence answered back. I checked my watch. 3:20. Maybe they were running late, caught in LA traffic or finishing last-minute dinner preparations. I rang the bell again, holding it longer this time. The melody played its expensive song to empty rooms. A security camera tracked my movement from its mount near the door. Red light blinked steadily, recording my growing confusion. I waved at it awkwardly, feeling foolish. "Hello, anyone home?" The quiet stretched unbroken. No television sounds, no cooking noises, no voices calling that they'd be right there. Just the fountain's gentle splash and the distant hum of affluent neighborhood life. I walked around the house perimeter, gift bags growing heavy in my sweating hands. The backyard was a paradise of pool and patio furniture, outdoor kitchen gleaming unused under its canvas cover. Through sliding glass doors, I glimpsed a living room that belonged in a luxury hotel lobby. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything empty. The back door was locked tight. Returning to the front, I pulled out my phone and dialed Milton's number with unsteady fingers. It rang 4 times before switching to voicemail. "You've reached Milton Ramos. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." "Milton, it's Dad." I tried to keep the worry from my voice. "I met your house like we planned. Where are you? Call me back." I tried Flossie's number next, though I barely knew her. We'd spoken maybe 3 times in Christmas calls over the years. "Hi, this is Flossie. I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll call you back soon." "Flossie, it's Christopher. I'm here for dinner. Please call me back." The street remained tomb quiet, except for gardeners working across the way. Their leaf blowers provided the only signs of life in this perfect neighborhood. A security patrol car cruised past slowly, the driver giving me a long look that made me feel like an intruder. I sat down on the front steps, setting the gift bags beside me. The concrete was warm through my pants, but shade from the portico provided some relief. This had to be a misunderstanding. Traffic delays, maybe an emergency at work. People didn't invite their arranged fathers to dinner just to abandon them on doorsteps, did they? My phone remained stubbornly silent. No return calls, no text messages explaining the delay. The fountain's cheerful splash began to sound mocking. 4 o'clock came and went. The sun shifted, removing my shade and leaving me exposed on the steps like a piece of unwanted furniture. Sweat soaked through my shirt despite the California breeze. My leather shoes felt tight and uncomfortable on the unfamiliar concrete. Other houses on the street showed similar signs of expensive emptiness: closed gates, pristine driveways, the peculiar silence of wealth that insulates itself from the world. I'd never felt more out of place, sitting on steps that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe Milton had meant next Friday, not this Friday. Maybe my eagerness to reconcile had made me hear what I wanted to hear instead of what he'd actually said. But no, he'd specifically mentioned this Friday, and Flossie had sounded excited about the dinner plans. My heart began to sink toward familiar territory, the same disappointment I'd felt when Milton missed my 60th birthday, the same hollow ache from when he'd skipped Martha's funeral service, patterns repeating themselves despite hopeful promises. I stood up slowly, knees protesting after the long sit. The gift bags felt heavier now, weighted with foolish optimism. Maybe it was time to accept that some bridges couldn't be rebuilt, that 3 years of silence had created a gap too wide for phone calls to cross. The Cadillac waited patiently in the driveway, faithful as always. I could drive home tonight, be back in Phoenix by midnight if I pushed it, return to my own problems, my own world, where I understood the rules and expectations. I was reaching for my car keys when I heard footsteps rushing toward me. "Wait, don't go in there." The voice came from behind a perfectly manicured hedge. I spun around, nearly dropping the gift bags as a thin man emerged carrying an electric hedge trimmer. His gray hair was disheveled, thick glasses sliding down his sweat-slick nose. "Excuse me." I steadied myself against the Cadillac's hot metal. "I think you're confused." He glanced nervously toward Milton's house, then back at me. "Sir, you need to leave now. Those people are dangerous." The man looked to be in his early 50s, wearing a grass-stained polo shirt and dirty gardening gloves. His nervous energy made my skin crawl, but not as much as his words. "This is my son's house," I said firmly. "I think you've made a mistake." His face went pale. "Your son? Oh no. You're the father they mentioned." Ice ran down my spine despite the California heat. "What are you talking about? Who mentioned me?" He set down the hedge trimmer and stepped closer, lowering his voice to an urgent whisper. "Your son and his wife. They killed her father, poisoned him." "That's impossible." The words came out louder than I intended. "You must be mistaken. $5 million in inheritance. He died right after visiting them, just like you're doing now." My legs felt unsteady. "This is ridiculous. My son would never—" "He was healthy as a horse when he came here for dinner. A week later, he's dead." The man's hand shook as he spoke. "I'm Larry, by the way. I live right there." He pointed to the house next door. "I've been watching this place since it happened. People die of natural causes all the time," I protested. But my voice sounded weak, even to my own ears. "Natural causes don't make you vomit in someone's driveway." Larry's eyes darted toward the security cameras mounted on Milton's house. The neighbors saw him leave here pale as death, throwing up before he even reached his car. The gift bag slipped from my sweating palms, landing on the hot concrete with a soft thud. The expensive wrapping paper crinkled, looking suddenly foolish in the harsh afternoon light. "You're telling me my son is a murderer?" The words felt foreign in my mouth. "I'm telling you to leave before you become the next victim." Larry backed toward his hedge, clearly terrified of being overheard. "That woman, Flossie, there's something cold about her. And your boy, he's changed since he married her." My heart hammered against my ribs. 3 years of estrangement suddenly took on a darker meaning. What if Milton had changed? What if the money troubles I'd refused to help with had driven him to something unthinkable? "How do you know about the inheritance?" I heard myself ask. Small neighborhood, people talk. Her father was loaded, lived alone in Pasadena, healthy 70-year-old who played golf twice a week. Larry's voice dropped even lower. One dinner with his new son-in-law and daughter, boom, dead within days. The business part of my brain, the part that had built a successful company, through careful risk assessment, started cataloging details. Wealthy older parent, recent marriage, sudden death after family visit. The pattern made terrible sense. But this was Milton, my son, the boy I'd taught to fish, who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd once brought home a stray dog because he looked lonely. "I have to warn you because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't," Larry continued. "But I've said all I can say. That's all I can do." He grabbed his hedge trimmer and started backing toward his own property, casting fearful glances at the cameras tracking our conversation. "Wait," I called after him. "What about the police? What about them? Rich people die. Happens all the time. No investigation when there's no evidence." He paused at his gate. "Just don't eat or drink anything they offer you. And don't stay the night." I watched Larry disappear behind his hedge, leaving me with questions that made my stomach turn. The driveway felt like a furnace under my feet. I paced back and forth beside the Cadillac, my mind racing faster than my heart. Larry had to be wrong. Delusional, maybe senile, or harboring some grudge against Milton and Flossie. My son wasn't capable of murder. The boy who'd cried over roadkill couldn't poison another human being for money. Could he? I picked up the fallen gift bags, their cheerful wrapping now mockingly bright. The Rolex inside had been meant as a peace offering, a symbol of renewed trust between father and son. Now it felt like evidence of my own naivety. 3 years. 3 years of silence after our fight about money. What had happened to Milton in that time? Who had he become? The memory of our last argument crashed over me with new significance. His desperation when asking for $50,000. "I need this investment, Dad. My future depends on it." The wild look in his eyes when I'd refused. "You'll regret not believing in me." At the time, I dismissed it as the tantrum of a spoiled adult who'd never learned the value of hard work. Now those words carried a different weight. A threat, maybe, rather than a prediction. I pulled out my phone and tried Milton's number again, straight to voicemail, the mailbox now full. Flossie's phone rang endlessly before clicking to the same cheerful recording I'd heard an hour ago. Where were they? If this dinner invitation was genuine, why weren't they answering their phones? Why had they left me sitting here for over 2 hours? The house loomed before me, its white modernist facade, no longer impressive, but imposing, fortress-like. The security cameras seemed to track my every movement, red lights blinking like mechanical eyes. How many people had those cameras recorded in their final hours? Martha's voice echoed in my memory. "You're too hard on the boy, Christopher. Milton has your ambition, but not your patience. Be careful not to push him too far away." Had I pushed him toward this? Had my harsh criticism and refusal to support his dreams created the desperation that led to murder? But that was insane. People didn't kill for money, especially not their own family members. Except they did. The news was full of such stories. Inheritance disputes, insurance policies, elderly parents found dead under mysterious circumstances. I set the gift bags on the Cadillac's hood and leaned against the warm metal. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, but I barely felt it. My thoughts were too loud, too chaotic. If Larry was telling the truth, then Milton and Flossie had invited me here to kill me. The loving son's voice on the phone, the talk of missing me and wanting to reconcile. All lies, a performance designed to lure me within striking distance. But if Larry was lying or mistaken, then I was standing here like a paranoid fool, destroying my only chance at rebuilding the relationship with my son. $5 million. That's what Larry had said Flossie inherited from her father. Enough money to buy this house, fund Milton's lifestyle, make all his financial problems disappear. Enough money to kill for. My phone buzzed. A text message. My heart leaped until I saw it was from my business partner in Phoenix asking about the Henderson account. The outside world, my normal life, seemed impossibly distant now. I checked the time, almost 5:30. The sun was beginning its descent toward the Pacific, painting the Beverly Hills mansions in golden light, beautiful and deadly, like everything else in this neighborhood. A car engine hummed in the distance, growing louder. My pulse quickened. Someone was coming down the street, and in a neighborhood this exclusive, it could only be residents or their guests. The engine sound grew more distinct, expensive, smooth, not the rumble of my aging Cadillac, but the purr of German engineering. I had maybe 30 seconds to decide. Get in my car and drive away, proving I didn't trust my own son, or stay and smile and hug Milton when he arrived, possibly signing my own death warrant in the process. A silver BMW turned into the driveway, and I had to decide whether to smile and hug my son or run for my life. The BMW's engine whispered to a stop behind my dusty Cadillac. Tinted windows concealed the occupants for a moment that stretched like eternity. I forced my face into what I hoped resembled a relieved smile, though my heart hammered against my ribs. The driver's door opened first. Milton emerged in clothes I'd never seen him afford. Tailored slacks, silk shirt, leather shoes that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He looked prosperous, healthy, nothing like the struggling man who'd called me 3 years ago, begging for money. "Dad." His voice carried genuine warmth as he strode toward me with open arms. "I'm so sorry we kept you waiting." Traffic was murder getting back from downtown. Murder. The word hit me like a slap. Poor choice of words or calculated cruelty. "We had some legal business to wrap up," he continued, pulling me into an embrace that felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. Boring stuff, but you know how these lawyers are. Legal business, wills, maybe estate planning. I returned his hug while my mind cataloged every detail for future analysis. The passenger door opened, and Flossie stepped out like a model posing for a magazine. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer dress that hugged her figure, handbag that cost more than some people's monthly rent. She moved with the practiced grace of someone accustomed to being watched and admired. "Christopher," she approached with arms extended, her smile bright enough to power the neighborhood. "You're even more handsome than your photos." Milton showed me so many pictures from when he was growing up. She touched my arm as she spoke, a gesture that would have seemed friendly an hour ago. Now it made my skin crawl. I studied her face for signs of guilt, for cracks in the performance, but found only enthusiasm and warmth. "I hope you brought an appetite," she continued. "I've been cooking all afternoon. Your favorites. Milton told me all about your love for pot roast and Martha's dinner rolls." How did she know about Martha's dinner rolls? Milton must have shared more family memories than I'd realized. The intimacy of that knowledge felt like a violation. "The drive wasn't too rough, was it?" Milton asked, glancing at my travel W-worn appearance with what seemed like genuine concern. 6 hours is a long haul, especially in this heat." "Not too bad," I managed, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "The Cadillac handles it well." "She's a classic," Milton said, running his hand along the car's faded paint with apparent appreciation. "Remember when you taught me to drive in this old girl? I was so scared I'd scratch her." The memory was real, warm, innocent. It belonged to a different life before suspicions and accusations and the terrible possibility that my son had become a stranger capable of murder. I picked up the gift bags from the car hood, my hands trembling slightly. "I brought you both something. Just small tokens." "Dad, you didn't have to do that." Milton's eyes lit up with what looked like genuine pleasure. "You being here is gift enough." Flossie clapped her hands together like a delighted child. "Oh, how sweet." But first, let's get you inside where it's cool. You look overheated, and I've got iced tea waiting." "Iced tea?" My throat was parched from the heat and stress, but Larry's warning echoed in my mind. Don't eat or drink anything they offer you. They flanked me as we walked toward the front door, Milton carrying one of my bags despite my protests, Flossie chattering about the neighborhood and their renovations, the perfect host and hostess welcoming a beloved family member. The front door opened with an electronic beep. "Keypad entry." I noticed expensive security system, the kind that could keep people out or keep them in. The interior took my breath away. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, designer furniture arranged with museum precision, art on the walls that looked original and expensive. Every surface spoke of money, serious money, the kind that transformed lives overnight. "We've done some updating since we moved in," Milton said with obvious pride, giving me the tour like a real estate agent. The kitchen was completely gutted and rebuilt. Flossie has very specific ideas about cooking spaces, or specific needs for food preparation that required privacy and control. "It's beautiful," I said honestly. "You've both done very well for yourselves." "We've been lucky with some investments," Milton replied, but something in his tone suggested the conversation was closed. "Come on, let me show you the living room. The view of the canyon is incredible." They led me deeper into their palace, their voices cheerful and welcoming, their movements casual and confident. If this was an act, It was flawlessly performed. If it was genuine, then Larry was a paranoid neighbor with too much time and too little sense. But as I followed them toward the kitchen, the expensive house felt less like a home and more like a beautiful trap. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking toward the kitchen where Martha used to hum while cooking our family dinners. I walked toward the kitchen, thirsty and suspicious, while Flossie hummed quietly over the stove, the same tune Martha used to sing while cooking our family dinners. Martha's melody followed me into the gleaming kitchen like a ghost from happier times. Flossie stood at the professional-grade stove, her back turned, stirring something that smelled of garlic and herbs. The tune she hummed twisted my heart, my dead wife's favorite song now coming from the throat of my potential killer. "Just getting some water," I announced, opening what seemed like the obvious cabinet for glasses. Crystal stemware caught the light, expensive pieces that belonged in a museum rather than a kitchen. Everything here screamed money, the kind of sudden wealth that raised questions. "Glasses are in the upper cabinet, Christopher," Flossie called without turning around. "Found them, thank you." My hand reached for a simple water glass, but the cabinet door swung wider than intended. Behind the cleaning supplies, a small brown bottle caught my eye. My business instincts, honed by decades of risk assessment, immediately flagged it as wrong. Dish soap and window cleaner didn't require pharmaceutical containers. I glanced at Flossie, still busy at the stove, humming Martha's song like a mockery of family memories. The bottle felt cold in my palm. The label faced me clearly, as if fate wanted me to read every word. Potassium cyanide, handled with extreme care. Warning symbols covered half the space. A skull and crossbones grinned up at me like death's business card. Time stopped. Larry had been right. They really were trying to kill me. My hands shook, nearly dropping the evidence. Every thriller movie I'd ever seen, every news story about family murders, suddenly became real and personal. This wasn't fiction or distant tragedy. This was my son planning to poison his own father. How much did it take? A few drops? A teaspoon? The label warned of extreme danger, which meant even small amounts could be fatal. My businessman's mind calculated while my father's heart broke into pieces. The cooking sounds continued behind me. Flossie, chopping, stirring, completely unaware that I'd found her murder weapon. She probably thought herself clever, hiding it behind everyday items where no one would look. But I had looked, and now I knew. I forced my trembling hands to replace the bottle exactly where I'd found it, positioning it behind the same cleaning products. The cabinet closed with a soft click that sounded thunderous to my ears. Every movement had to appear natural, casual, the actions of a thirsty father-in-law helping himself to water. The tap ran cold water into my glass while my mind raced through implications. $5 million in inheritance money, a house worth millions, a lifestyle neither Milton nor Flossie could afford through legitimate means. The pattern was clear now. They'd killed before, and I was next on their list. "How's the water, Christopher?" Flossie's voice carried false concern. "Perfect. Thank you." I turned from the sink, glass in hand, watching her move around the kitchen with new eyes. Every gesture now seemed calculated. Every smile hid murder. She'd killed her own father, and now she was helping my son plan my death. The irony burned. She was humming Martha's favorite song while preparing to send me to join my wife in the grave. But knowledge was power. They thought I was an unsuspecting victim, a lonely old man desperate for family reconciliation. They had no idea their plan was already discovered, their weapon identified, their intentions exposed. I took a long drink of water, buying time to think. How many people had stood in this same kitchen, trusting these same smiles, only to die within hours? How many family dinners had become execution chambers? The humming continued. That beloved melody turned sinister by its new singer. I turned from the sink with my water glass, knowing that everything Flossie was preparing, including our family dinner, was now potentially deadly. The living room felt different now. like a theater stage where everyone performed roles except me. Milton looked up from his magazine as I returned, his smile the same one I'd taught him to use on customers when he was 12. Found what you needed, Dad? Yes, thank you. Beautiful kitchen. The words came out steadier than I felt. You've both created something special here. I chose the leather armchair with a clear sight line to the kitchen doorway. Milton didn't question my positioning, too focused on playing the perfect host. From here, I could observe Flossie's movements while maintaining conversation. Tell me about this LA real estate market, I said, needing Milton's attention directed away from my surveillance. Seems like you've done well for yourselves. We've been lucky with some investments, Milton replied, the same vague explanation from earlier. The key is knowing when to take risks. Through the doorway, Flossie moved between counter and stove with practiced efficiency. Multiple wine bottles sat opened on the marble island, expensive reds that would have impressed me an hour ago. Now they look like props in an elaborate murder scene. Christopher, do you prefer red or white? She called from the kitchen. Whatever you recommend, I replied, watching her select a bottle of Cabernet that probably costs more than most people spent on groceries. Milton launched into a discussion of California wine regions, while I maintained appropriate responses, but my attention stayed locked on the kitchen, where Flossie poured 3 glasses of deep red wine. She set 2 glasses aside near the window. The third remained by the stove. My heart hammered against my ribs as she glanced toward the living room, checking our positions. Milton was deep in his wine expertise monologue, gesturing with his hands, completely unaware his wife was preparing to commit murder. Flossie reached into the lower cabinet, the same one where I'd found the poison bottle. Time dilated as she retrieved the small brown container. Her movements were quick but careful, practiced. This wasn't her first time. She'd done this before, probably in this same kitchen, maybe to her own father. Clear liquid dripped into the wine glass closest to the stove. 1 drop, 2, 3. A gentle swirl mixed the poison with the Cabernet, creating what looked like an innocent glass of expensive wine. The bottle disappeared back into its hiding place among the cleaning supplies. The Napa Valley producers really understand terroir, Milton was saying, his voice seeming to come from underwater. That's what separates good wine from great wine. Great wine mixed with deadly poison, I thought, watching Flossie arrange the glasses on an elegant serving tray. The poison glass held its position. I memorized exactly which one she doctored. She was humming again. Martha's song, the same melody my wife used to sing while cooking Sunday dinners for our small family. Now it accompanied preparation for my execution. Gentlemen, dinner is served. Flossie's voice carried theatrical warmth as she emerged from the kitchen carrying the tray of wine. Milton jumped up with enthusiasm. Finally, I'm starving. I rose more slowly, cataloging the positions of everything that mattered. The poisoned glass sat on the right side of the tray, closest to where Flossie's hand gripped the handles. She knew exactly which one would be mine. This has been too long in coming, Milton said, his arm around my shoulders as we walked toward the dining room. Family should stick together. Family. The word tasted bitter now. My son was leading me to dinner like a lamb to slaughter, his voice full of warmth, while his wife carried liquid death in crystal stemware. The dining room table gleamed under chandelier light, set with china that belonged in palaces. 3 place settings waited for us, perfect in their symmetry, beautiful and deadly like everything else in this house. As we approached the dining table set with fine china that reflected the chandelier light, Flossie placed the tray of wine glasses at the center, including the one meant to be my last drink. Candles flickered across polished mahogany as Flossie directed our seating like a conductor orchestrating a symphony of death. The dining room belonged in architectural magazines, crystal chandelier casting rainbows through wine glasses, each piece of china worth more than my employees' weekly salaries. Christopher, you sit here at the head. She gestured toward the chair furthest from any exit, place of honor for our special guest. Milton took his position to my right, Flossie to my left. They flanked me perfectly, cutting off escape routes while maintaining the illusion of family intimacy. The choreography felt rehearsed. "Let's toast to family reunions," Milton said, lifting his wine glass with theatrical enthusiasm. Flossie raised hers in perfect synchronization to healing old wounds and new beginnings. My glass sat within easy reach, the candlelight making the poison Cabernet look like liquid rubies, beautiful and lethal. I could smell the wine's rich aroma from where I sat. No trace of the poison that would kill me within minutes of consumption. "I appreciate the gesture," I began, my voice steadier than my pulse. "But I've stopped drinking alcohol." Milton's expression shifted, surprise replacing expectation. "Since when? You used to enjoy wine with dinner." "Doctor's orders. Blood pressure medication doesn't mix well with alcohol." The lie came easily, believable for a man my age dealing with stress and health concerns. Flossie's smile faltered for just a microcond, but I caught it. The tiny crack in her performance revealed frustration beneath the hostess facade. "Of course, health comes first." Milton recovered quickly, but his glance toward Flossie carried meaning. They'd rehearsed this scenario, prepared for obstacles. "Flossie makes incredible fresh juice," he continued, his voice carrying forced enthusiasm. "Apple cranberry blend, you'll love it." The wink he gave his wife might have seemed playful to an unsuspecting observer. To me, it confirmed they'd moved to Plan B. Whatever waited in that kitchen blender would be just as deadly as the wine I'd refused. "I'll get some immediately," Flossie said, rising with renewed energy. Her disappointment had transformed into determination. While she busied herself in the kitchen, Milton filled the silence with nervous chatter about Los Angeles lifestyle and business opportunities. His pace had increased, words tumbling together as he checked his watch repeatedly. "We have exciting plans for tomorrow," he mentioned, then caught himself. "I mean, we hope you'll consider staying longer. Maybe see more of the city. Plans that assumed I wouldn't survive the night." The blender word from the kitchen running longer than necessary for simple juice preparation. I engaged Milton in questions about house renovations while listening to every sound. Refrigerator opening multiple times, glasses clinking, liquid pouring. The preparation process seemed unnecessarily complex. "This is our signature blend," Flossie announced, returning with an elegant glass pitcher filled with dark red juice. Ice cubes floated alongside orange and cranberry garnish. Professional presentation masking murder. "Christopher, you must try this." She poured a generous glass, her movements precise and practiced. Both of them watched my reaction with intensity that felt oppressive. Their eyes tracked my every gesture, waiting for me to lift the glass to my lips. "It looks delicious," I said carefully. "But I'm quite full from the water. Maybe with dessert. I don't want to spoil my appetite for this beautiful meal." Milton's insistence came immediately. "Come on, Dad, just a small sip." Flossie worked so hard on it. The pressure escalated with each refusal. Their desperation began showing through cracks in their performance. Milton's voice pitched higher, Flossie's hands tense as she hovered near my chair. "Please, Christopher." Flossie's tone carried pleading undertones. "Just a taste for me." Her positioning felt predatory, ready to react if I continued resisting their hospitality. They'd invested too much in this evening to let me leave without consuming their poison. I pushed back from the table with what I hoped looked like satisfied contentment rather than strategic retreat. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom before we continue this wonderful evening." As I stood, I saw Milton and Flossie exchange a look that confirmed what I have already knew. They had no intention of letting me leave this house alive. The hallway stretched before me like a lifeline. Family photos lined the walls. Milton's graduation, wedding pictures, vacations to Europe, images of happiness built on blood money. Now each step toward the bathroom felt measured, calculated. Too fast would signal panic. Too slow might test their patience. "Just need to freshen up before dessert," I called back, my voice carrying the right note of elderly politeness. The bathroom door closed behind me with a soft click. I turned the lock, the sound unnaturally loud in the small space. For the first time in hours, I was alone with my knowledge and my terror. My phone emerged from my pocket with trembling hands. Full signal strength, thank goodness. I dialed 911 with the volume turned to its lowest setting, pressing the device close to my ear. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Christopher Ramos, I whispered. My son and daughter-in-law are trying to poison me. Sir, can you speak louder? Are you in immediate danger? Yes, but I must whisper. I'm hiding in their bathroom. They've poisoned my drinks twice tonight with potassium cyanide. The dispatcher's tone sharpened immediately. What's your location? I provided at the Beverly Hills address, my voice barely audible above the sound of my own heartbeat. Through the door, I could hear Milton and Flossie talking in normal tones, probably discussing my bathroom break and their next move. I found the poison bottle in their kitchen, I continued. I watched her put it in my wine and juice. They killed her father the same way last year for inheritance money. Sir, stay on the line. Officers are being dispatched. Are there weapons in the house? I don't know about guns, but the poison is enough. They think I'm just using the facilities. How many people are in the house with you? 2. My son Milton and his wife Flossie. They're waiting for me to return so they can try again. The dispatcher's professional calm steadied my nerves. Officers will be there in approximately 20 minutes. Can you stay safe that long? 20 minutes. An eternity when you're performing for your life. I'll need to go back and act normal or they'll suspect something. The poisoned drinks are still on the dining table. The cyanide bottle is under the kitchen sink behind cleaning supplies. Don't touch anything else. Let the officers collect evidence. Keep your phone accessible, but not obvious. I flushed the toilet and ran water in the sink, creating authentic bathroom sounds. In the mirror, my reflection looked older than my 67 years, but my eyes held determination I hadn't felt since Martha's death. What if they try to force me to drink something? Refuse everything? Create any excuse? Help is coming, Mr. Ramos. I understand. I'm going back now. The connection ended. I slipped the phone into my pocket, took a deep breath, and prepared to perform the role of my life. The unsuspecting father, grateful for family reconciliation, unaware that dessert would be my last meal. Milton's voice carried through the door. Dad, you okay in there? Dessert's ready, coming right out. I opened the bathroom door and walked back toward the dining room, knowing that in less than 20 minutes, this house of lies would be filled with police officers, and my son's life would be over forever. The dining room felt like a stage where I performed my final act. Flossie had arranged an elaborate apple pie, steam rising from golden crust that would have looked appetizing hours ago. Now it represented another potential murder weapon. Christopher, I made this especially for you, she announced, knife poised over the dessert. Your favorite, Milton told me. It looks absolutely wonderful, I managed, checking my watch discreetly. 15 more minutes, but I'm quite full from that delicious dinner. Let me digest first. Milton's enthusiasm felt forced. Come on, Dad, just a small piece. Flossie, spend all afternoon on it. I deflected with practiced ease. Tell me about your neighborhood first. I saw some beautiful homes driving in. The real estate market here must be incredible. The conversation bought precious time, but I could see frustration building behind their smiles. Milton checked his phone repeatedly. Flossie's grip on the serving knife tightened with each passing minute. Then salvation arrived in the form of car doors slamming outside. Milton frowned toward the front window. That's strange. Sounds like a lot of cars. Heavy footsteps crossed the walkway. The doorbell rang, followed immediately by authoritative knocking that made the expensive front door rattle. I'll get that, Milton said, confusion replacing his dinner party charm. Flossie followed him toward the entrance while I remained seated, my heart pounding with relief and anticipation. LAPD, we received a call about a possible poisoning incident at this address. Milton's voice cracked with shock. Poisoning? There must be some mistake, officer. I stood up and walked toward the foyer where 3 uniformed officers filled the doorway. Their presence transformed the elegant entrance into a crime scene. Officers, I'm Christopher Ramos. I made that call. The color drained from Flossie's face like water from a broken glass. Milton's confusion shifted to horror as understanding dawned. Dad, What did you do? I called for help when I discovered you were trying to murder me, I replied, my voice steadier than it had been all evening. The lead officer stepped forward. Mr. Ramos, where are the items you mentioned? I gestured toward the dining room. The poisoned wine and juice glasses are on the table. The potassium cyanide bottle is in the kitchen under the sink behind cleaning supplies. Milton's desperate denials filled the air. This is insane. We would never hurt my father. He's confused, possibly having some kind of episode. But Flossie remained silent, her calculating mind already working on damage control. Her silence spoke louder than Milton's protests. 2 officers moved toward the dining room while a third headed for the kitchen. Within minutes, they were photographing evidence and carefully bagging the poisoned beverages I'd refused to consume. The cyanide bottle is exactly where he described, called the kitchen officer. Milton's face went white as the implications hit him. The evidence was undeniable, physical, damning. Sir, you're under arrest for attempted murder, the lead officer announced, producing handcuffs. Dad, please. Milton's voice broke as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. Tell them this is all a mistake. I met his eyes for what I knew would be the last time. You stopped being my son when you decided to murder me for money. Flossie's arrest proceeded with professional efficiency. She offered no resistance, no pleas, just cold calculation of her odds. As they read her rights, I saw only hatred in her eyes when she looked at me. Larry appeared from his house next door, drawn by the police cars and flashing lights. I warned him earlier about these 2, he told the officers. Something was very wrong here. Thank you, I said to Larry, as Milton and Flossie were loaded into separate patrol cars. You saved my life. The neighbors had gathered on the street, drawn by the spectacle of wealth and privilege crumbling under police lights. The house that had seemed so impressive hours earlier now looked like what it truly was, a monument to murder, funded by blood money. As the police cars pulled away with my son and his wife in custody, I stood in the driveway where I'd arrived with such hope just hours earlier, knowing that justice was only beginning, and the hardest part, living with the truth about my family, still lay ahead. The months between June and September passed in a blur of legal meetings, evidence reviews, and sleepless nights. I sold my logistics company to cover legal expenses and the emotional toll of testifying against my own son. The Phoenix house held too many memories of the family I thought I'd known, so I rented a small apartment in Los Angeles to be available for the prosecution. Media attention followed everywhere. Phoenix businessman survives son's murder plot. Larry remained my anchor to sanity, visiting regularly and reminding me that survival sometimes requires impossible choices. September 15th arrived with California sunshine streaming through the Superior Court windows. The courtroom's wood paneling and formal atmosphere couldn't diminish the surreal nature of watching my son and daughter-in-law at the defendant's table, their expensive lawyers whispering strategies. The prosecution's case unfolded with methodical precision. The poison bottle exhibited to the jury with its clear warning labels. Laboratory analysis confirming cyanide in both wine and juice glasses, financial records showing Flossie's convenient inheritance, and subsequent spending spree. Larry testified about his warnings and suspicions. His nervous energy on the witness stand reminded me of that afternoon when he'd rushed from behind his hedge to save my life. Then came my turn. Mr. Ramos, please tell the court what happened on the evening of June 20th. I recounted the discovery in the kitchen cabinet, watching Flossie poison my drinks, the desperate bathroom phone call. The jury listened with rapt attention as I described performing for my life while my would-be killers served dinner. The defense attorney tried to portray me as a confused elderly man, perhaps suffering from paranoid delusions, but my business background and clear recollection of events undermined their strategy. Mr. Ramos, the prosecutor asked, are you certain about what you witnessed? I saw her add poison to my drink with my own eyes. My son invited me to dinner to kill me for my money. The words hung in the courtroom air like an indictment of everything family should represent. Expert testimony followed on cyanide's lethality and proper storage protocols. Financial forensics revealed the inheritance money timeline. Most damning investigators had reopened the case of Flossie's father's death, finding suspicious similarities. The defense's desperation showed in their closing arguments, grasping at explanations for household poison, storage, and misunderstood dinner preparations. But the evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, deadly. 6 hours of jury deliberation over 2 days felt like an eternity. When they returned, the foreman's solemn expression told the story before he spoke. We find the defendants guilty on all charges. Relief and heartbreak collided in my chest. Justice had been served, but the cost was everything I'd believed about family. The judge's sentencing was swift and final. Milton received life imprisonment without parole for attempted murder and conspiracy. Flossie got life for her father's murder and the attempt on mine. The $5 million inheritance was ordered, returned to her father's estate. As they led Milton away in shackles, he made one final desperate appeal. "Dad, I never meant for it to go this far." "You stopped being my son when you chose money over love," I replied, the words cutting through years of false hope and willful blindness. Flossie maintained her cold silence to the end, showing no remorse, no recognition of the lives destroyed by her greed. I walked down the courthouse steps into California sunshine, feeling simultaneously empty and free. The drive back to Phoenix represented more than geographical transition. It was a journey toward whatever remained of my life. The desert landscape looked different now, cleaner somehow, as if the truth had burned away illusions like morning fog. Larry had helped me pack, promising to visit once I settled back home. I used part of the recovered inheritance money to establish a scholarship fund for students studying business ethics. Martha would have approved of turning blood money into something constructive. Sitting in my Phoenix living room months later, surrounded by photos that now told a different story, I understood that survival isn't just about avoiding death. It's about rebuilding life after trust dies. Justice was served, but the cost was everything I thought I knew about family. I learned that sometimes the greatest betrayal comes from those we love most, and the greatest strength comes from surviving it. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.